My dear people of southern Cameroons, my dear people of Amabazonia, brave warriors of our struggle for freedom, accept revolutionary greetings from me, John Baakuro, this day, this Saturday, which is day number 12 in the month of June 2021. My people, I'd like us to examine a few very important and interesting things today. I'm laughing because there was a time, and not long ago, that some people said, some naysayers said, we were done with. Some naysayers said, we will not realize our dream. Some naysayers said, our dream had come to an end. My dear people of the Southern Cameroons, I have said this over and over, and I'm repeating today, that this whole venture will never be over, only until it is over. That is why we will have to continue to watch out, and that's why we will have to continue to be very vigilant. La République du Cameroon right now is completely confused, very confused. They are dumbfounded. They are losing support wherever they thought they had it. And right now, they are at what I will easily call crossroads. And because of that, they have lost focus on exactly how to sort out things with us, how to continue to confuse our people, how to continue to manipulate our people. They have found themselves caught in a web of a lot of very uncoordinated messages. And so this uncoordinated messaging, this attempt at trying to water down the effects of that decision, that policy option announced by the U.S. Secretary of State, Mr. Antony Blinken, is having its toll on the people of La République du Cameroon, on the government of President Paul Biya. Because of that confusion, they are just running left, right, and wondering what can we do to try and reverse the tides, but then it's not working. That's going to be the subject matter of our communication today. My people, I'd like us to learn that at every given moment, we should verify whatever information is sent to us before we go out there sharing it. We should always verify. Because when we don't verify, we go out there sharing it, we start getting worried, we send our people who should now be enjoying the momentum into confusion. That is exactly what we have to avoid. But take note, we are dealing with a party that lives, breathes, and only eats manipulation, only eats and drinks corruption, embezzlement, lies, and all of those things. So for that reason, we really have to be vigilant. Because at any given moment, when they find themselves on the ground, they try as much as possible to see how to manipulate the minds of our people and raise the morale of their people, try to dampen the spirits of our people to tell them, you are on a journey that's leading to nowhere. Let me assure each and every one of you, this journey will only stop when we get to Boya. This journey will only stop when we all scream, free, free, free at last. We are free. This is the contract, the social contract we got into with Len Molanjo Litumbe, who, while he was alive, he fought from day one right up to the last day that he gave up his last breath. The same thing with Chief Ayamba Ete Otun. The same thing with all those who have gone before us, who got into this fray knowing that we are going in to secure freedom. We have to do everything to make sure we deliver. But before I open this very rich and very important package, make sure you don't miss it. We are going to be slightly long again today, but make sure you don't miss it. Watch all the way to the end. And when you do, share and make sure that you get to as many people as possible, because we need this education to continue. We have to be sensitized to the effect that everything is moving according to plan, my people. So take note. Before we get to that, let me get some little brushes into the COVID gate. I promised that I was going to do an entire broadcast on COVID gate, but we keep having a lot of important things concerning us in Southern Cameroon. So of course, you know that COVID gate is foreign news, but we still have to talk about it a little though. I'm sure we have all observed that now there's what we call official burglary in La République du Cameroon. I mean official burglary. And the burglaries are taking place only at the places which are most guarded and for specific reasons. Because this is what happens. They put at the disposal of the Prime Minister, head of government of La République du Cameroon, Chief Joseph Dion Gute, 189 billion to manage. And so he had a yam and he had a knife. So he was the one dishing out, send this amount to that ministry, send this amount to that minister, send this amount to that minister. Perhaps sometimes depending on the level of relations or depending on the degree of loyalty, he said, send this amount to this, send that amount to that, send that amount to that. Because the money was lodged at the Ministry of Public Health, and so the PM was the manager. He was a vote holder. But I'm saying so because this is exactly what the Minister of Public Health told the investigators at the first at the Supreme State Audit, at the audit bench, and then at the Special Criminal Tribunal, the Special Criminal Court. He told them, I was only executing. All the orders were coming from the Prime Minister's office. And from information that filtered out of there, he had papers, which means the Prime Minister was sending the instructions in written form. And so someone said, oh my goodness. So at the end of the day, the Minister of Public Health can even walk out of this whole thing because the PM was totally implicated. And I say, no, but at least he had his own allocation that was given to him to manage in this money. And so when the PM was called, the Prime Minister said, no, in this whole thing, look at it, please, my gentlemen and women. I have no role in this money. I gave everything to the Director of Cabinet. He's Director of Cabinet at the Prime Minister's office. That he is the one who was in charge of all of those things. So you could go ahead and ask him. I know nothing. I have no idea. And the ping pong continued. And so when the Director of Cabinet at the Prime Minister's office was called, he sweated there all day, made claims, he was taking instructions, he was working each time on instructions and all whatnot, and he's going to bring bigger, greater justifications. At the end of the day, when he left that place and returned, he didn't go back straight to his house. He, on that day, decided to stop at a funeral. And then that same evening, he claims people at the funeral drugged his driver, gave him a lot of alcohol to drink, confused him, and then found their way, broke into his car, and carried away his computer, his laptop that had all the justifications he would have given. The laptop had disappeared. Oh my goodness. That it is only on that day that he was quizzed, that he decided to go to a funeral with his driver. And then the driver decided to allow himself to be intoxicated so that they get into his car and then take away only that computer that had everything inside, no backup, and the computer has disappeared. Of course, this is just one of the burglaries, one of the official burglaries. We've heard of the other official burglary at the building of GCAM, where people too were involved in the management of COVID money. Everything, and the thieves don't carry anything. They come only for the computers, only for the documents. Besides that, we heard of the official burglary at the Department of Taxation, where the people came, and that building is heavily guarded with policemen and soldiers armed to the teeth. But they were able to break in, and they stole on all the floors. They said there are 11 floors, and they stole in every floor, carried away computers and documents. That's all they came for, not money. And at the same time, we learned that in broad daylight, they attacked the Ministry of Supreme State Audit with heavy arms. You know where the Ministry of Supreme State Audit is? Next to the Supreme Court, where there are military people around the place all the time. And the Ministry of Supreme State Audit is a few yards away from the Ministry of Defense, where all the generals are lodged. I bet you this is very interesting. Yet, they also broke into there, as they claimed, and in broad daylight, and carried away computers, just computers. So, that is La République du Cameroon. Open and closed. The case is open, the case is closed. And then we get the Minister of Communication. who comes and talks about the presumption of innocence. All our people, all Southern Cameroonians who are in Kondengi, who are in various detention centers around La République du Cameroon and in some parts of Southern Cameroon, have never enjoyed the presumption of innocence. I didn't know that La République du Cameroon knew something called the presumption of innocence. Yeah, I thought they didn't know that you should be considered innocent until proven guilty. But of course, that's not even what the Napoleonic Code that they applied there called the Code du droit civil. That's not what it says. It says you are guilty until you prove yourself not guilty. But for the first time, we're hearing them talk about the presumption of innocence. So, my people, this is very interesting. The Minister of Scientific Research and Innovation, who said they could produce medication back in Cameroon. I was told by the president that at her audition before the panel of the Special Criminal Court, she swore that she didn't know whether it was witchcraft, that she didn't even know where the money passed. She never even saw money. She didn't even know that they had said at her ministry that they could produce some of this medication. She didn't know whether it was witchcraft that took her hand and signed papers and things like that. That is a la Camerounaise. And then one of the ministers got there, some of Youth Affairs got there and simply said, yeah, they spent some money and bought a few gear and everything for COVID and gave to various centers and honor for action. And then he and his collaborators, they shared the rest. That one was honest, coup franc, straight. But the most interesting case is Jacques Famendongo, the Minister of Higher Education. He simply turned in all the billions that were handed over to him and his ministry. He simply went there and turned in the entire money. He said, this is all of the money, take it. Oh, my goodness. People were dying of COVID-19. They were forcing people coming into that country and living to spend huge sums of money to pay for tests and all of these things. Whereas Mr. Famendongo received billions to be used for it and kept it secretly somewhere without using it, so that when there will be trouble, he should give it back. This is even the most insane case, because it's a clear indication that Mr. Famendongo simply kept all of this money, waiting that at the moment they say, okay, end of the break, COVID nonsense is over and everything, and then Mr. Famendongo will simply transfer this money to his, whichever accounts he intended to. That is a la Camerounaise. My people, why am I talking about this? Because, like I said earlier, it should sound as foreign news. But I'm raising all of this to remind us Southern Cameroonians that this is the exact reason we should never, never find ourselves having anything again to do with that country. This is not how a country should be run. This is not exactly how a country should be managed. Where is Paul Biya in all this? Inexistent. This is not how a country should be run. At all. This is not according to the aspirations of the people of the Southern Cameroons. In Southern Cameroons, before we found ourselves entangled in this kind of tango of La République du Cameroon, this kind of things will never happen. Where there was total accountability, total clarity, total openness, checks and balances everywhere. You could not carry billions like this and entrust into the hands of people without any checks and balances. It didn't happen in the Southern Cameroons. It did not happen. And that's exactly why we should cut off from these people. Because at this rate, that country is never going to develop. It is never going to develop. So, I will talk more about COVID-Gate as the information continues to flow and gets to me. But let's leave it at that. Let's get into the vif of our discussion. My people, some newspapers back in La République du Cameroon have started the game of speculation. The names of officials are flying here and there as being people who have their names on the list, which is purportedly lodged at the U.S. State Department, of people who already have the axe who will have the spade of the sword of Damocles dangling on their heads, who will be denied visas to get into the United States of America. Like I said, it's a game of speculation. So that keeps the place warm. That keeps confusion in their minds. They are confused. They don't know. They have not understood how to respond to this when it came. My people, the first attempt they did was try to give the impression that us in the Southern Cameroons were really worried. As you see, this thing is coming like this. It's going to affect mainly the people, those of us they call separatists. That is them who are targeted because they refused to come to the Grand National Dialogue. They forgot that that Grand National Dialogue was swept under the carpet, dismissed by almost every single actor around the world except France. It wasn't welcome because it didn't look like the kind of dialogue that the international community has been talking about. So it was swept. But they were insinuating, because we didn't come for that dialogue, we are going to be the ones targeted. But as if that is not enough, suddenly, they turn around and say, you see, this thing like this, the problem is that those people will be extradited, because it suddenly turn around and say, but these people who call separatists, most of them are in that America. Most of them are in Europe. Most of them are wherever. So do they really need visas? And they ask themselves these questions, and they answer by saying, oh, well, if they really don't need visas, then we need to get into another kind of arrangement. Then they came up with something that involves Mangang and two other Southern Cameroonians and the Justice Department in the United States of America. And they start thinking those people will be extradited to Cameroon to come and face. Well, I don't know very much about those incidents, but what interests me here is when they say they will be extradited to Cameroon. First, that is lack of knowledge, failure to know how international relations operate. Number one, La République du Cameroon and the United States of America don't have an extradition treaty. No, it does not exist. The United States of America is not Nigeria, that without having such a treaty turned around and handed over refugees. No, it doesn't happen. That's number one. Number two, the people involved in this matter are U.S. citizens. So this is the United States of America having an axe to grind with its citizens. How many times have you ever heard that the United States of America has taken its own citizens and extradited them to another country to try them for offenses committed in the United States? Can you recall? Can anybody try to remind me? Perhaps my memory is failing me. And which country in the world in the first place does that? Will take its own citizens and extradite to another country to be tried for offenses committed in their country? That doesn't happen. It doesn't happen, my people. And again, the United States extraditing to which country? Which country? La République du Cameroon? Remember, some members of the U.S. Congress and the Senate requested President Joe Biden to grant temporary protected status to Southern Cameroonians in huge numbers who are in the United States of America seeking asylum from the brutality going on in that country. Because they recognize and acknowledge the brutality going on in that country, the lawlessness in that country. So who will be extraditing somebody to that kind of place? My people, like I said, that kind of uncoordinated communication from that end is because of confusion. It's because they are dumbfounded. It's because they don't know exactly what to do. At this point, they recognize they have lost control of the situation they claimed they always had, and then they start saying things left and right. I even see some of them saying that congratulating Nsalai Emmanuel as being at the origin of the trials. Oh my goodness. This is something that involves the U.S. government, the U.S. Justice Department, with its citizens. How does Mr. Nsalai Emmanuel come in? The gentleman who has failed all of the cases he brought up against people in this country. My people, we must maintain our focus on the prize, on the big prize, which is Boya. And when they tried those ones that didn't go, they now say, okay, in the likely event that we are now forced, because the U.S. Secretary of State talked about going for peace talks without preconditions. And I said the last time that this issue of without preconditions to La République du Cameroon represents something like a death sentence. And so they now start telling themselves, if we find ourselves cornered, that will have to get there. What do? So they exhume all publications, they exhume all kind of old things to come out there and try and confuse the minds of the people as to say, look, this your dream of independence has no chance. We have something that in the likely event that things are over can offer to you. My people, watch this video. I'm sure you have seen it circulating again on social media. We have all watched it. We watched it before. And I want to tell you, this video is of 2019. 2019. Just take a watch, though.
I share Chairwoman Bass's interest there. I have a number of Cameroon nationals in my district. Both of you ran out of time. You've mentioned that the government had established some Potemkin institutions. They weren't really doing anything to bring the two sides together. Could you elaborate on that? Because you ran out of time before.
Sure, yes, sir. I understand the Cameroonian government established several commissions, and I'm sorry, I don't know the exact name of it, whether it's the Multicultural Institution for National Reconciliation or something, which on the face of it sounds good, but the institution, and there have been a couple of these, but they have not been provided adequate budget, and they have not really done anything, because what the country needs more than anything else is a genuine, open dialogue, probably to include the diasporas of the Cameroonians, because they have a great deal of interest in this. Because, sir, what's happening, both sides are becoming further and further radicalized. Unfortunately, I believe that the president of Cameroon is being told by his hardliners that he can win this thing militarily. There is no way that they're going to win this militarily. The violence is going to get worse in the northwest and the southwest. The arm for an arm, literally an eye for an eye, and the whole world will be blind there. The violence will spread to the West Province. It may even spread to the Littoral Province, which is the large city of Douala. So there has to be something. We are very, very energetically speaking with our allies. That's why I said that we just had in the Security Council this Monday what the United Nations calls an ARIAS, where it's an open debate, and it's so clear that everybody wants to move forward on this. Are sanctions on the table? Everything's on the table moving forward. But we have to bring this situation to an end. Else, there's a possibility of what happened in Nigeria with Boko Haram. Started as a small movement, and now look at it. And it'd be disastrous for the region if the Cameroonian government turned this thing into yet another type of Boko Haram.
Or Boko Haram could come back into Cameroon. Well, how do... You mentioned, that it appears to be spiraling out of control because the more the security forces clamp down, the more resistance there is in the Anglophone region. So what can we do that we're not already doing?
Well, like I said, the best we can do for right now is just work with our allies to really make the Cameroonian government understand the need for a real dialogue. And if that doesn't happen relatively quickly, then we have to look at the array of other tools we have in our toolkit, because frankly the possibility of sanctions is always there. But it's always better to work in concert with our friends before we go in that direction, because the frustrating thing is it is in the interest of everybody to have a national dialogue. The situation will not end militarily. Each day the atrocities will get worse and worse.
Is the permanent separation of the two regions a possibility?
Sir, I don't believe so, because I think that most Cameroonians, including in the southwest and northwest, have a sense of Cameroonianness, and the concept of a separated, what they call Amabazonia, in my view, is not realistic. Okay. It is the view of the United States of America to recognize the integrity of the country of Cameroon.
Got it. Thank you very much. I share Chairman.
Well, I'm sorry about that the noise incursion. So, you see, La République du Cameroon exhumed this video, which happened in 2019. My guess doesn't fail me, this should have been somewhere in July of 2019. But that was in 2019. So La République du Cameroon decided to exhume this video, circulate it now, and give the impression that this is happening now, not because of the entire content, but because of the last few words, the very last few words. We say, one, that the stuff is for the United States to recognize the integrity, whatever, of Cameroon, and then number two, that Amabazonia could not be, somewhat realistic. This is 2019. This was Secretary of State Tibor Nagy, who is even no longer in government because he's a Republican, and the Republican Party gave way. But when you listen to him carefully, you notice that what is happening now is continuity. Because he said something very important there. That when they use persuasion, work with the allies and all whatnot, and it doesn't work, they go back to the next tools that they have in the toolkit, which is sanctions. So right now what is happening is we have gotten to the regime of sanctions. But one thing you need to know, in the past, like I said in my last communication, we just had discussion. They just had discussion about Cameroon like an isolated thing in passing and all of those things. But from the moment the U.S. Senate passed a resolution on January 1, on New Year's Day, January 1, 2021, giving directives to the State Department on how to get fully engaged, that was the moment when the United States now started building a clear-cut policy on the Southern Cameroons. And you heard the Secretary of State didn't refer to it as the situation in Cameroon, he said the situation in English and Anglophone Cameroon, which is very specific at this point in time. And so one thing you must note about policy, be it foreign policy or international policy in whatever way you want to address it, it is dynamic. It is dynamic. Policies changed according to the circumstances, according to the things that are happening on the ground. At that time, it could be policy for the United States of America to recognize the territorial integrity of Cameroon. And mind you, I've always said that when they even talk about the territorial integrity of the Republic of Cameroon, we are not even putting the territorial integrity of the Republic of Cameroon to question. And that is why the Embassy of the United States of America in Yaoundé issued a statement in 2018 in which they said that sometimes we want to recognize the integrity and sovereignty of the Republic of Cameroon. Sometimes we don't, and this has consequences. That statement is out there. This should tell you something. Because the integrity of La République du Cameroon is not questioned. Nobody questions it. La République du Cameroon became independent on January 1, 1960, with clearly known boundaries, and the Southern Cameroons is not encroaching into that territory now. So, just like Honorable Tibor Nagy stated that the policy could be to recognize the integrity of Cameroon, that's the same thing Southern Cameroonians are saying. We are recognizing the territorial integrity of La République du Cameroon, which does not include the territory of the once independent state of Southern Cameroons. This is a clear distinction we should always have at the back of our minds anytime we step out to communicate, anytime we have a discussion to hold with people. This may have some people may get confused at a semantic level, but it is simply true. Both the United States of America and the people of the Southern Cameroons, the people of Amabazonia, will recognize the territorial integrity of La République du Cameroon as of their date of independence on January 1, 1960. It does not include Southern Cameroons. Let this be clear in the minds of each and everyone here. If they were talking about recognizing the integrity of the Federal Republic of Cameroon, that will be a discussion for another day. Because there was a Federal Republic of Cameroon that included Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. But La République du Cameroon dismissed that thing, created something called the United Republic of Cameroon, and then ended up seceding back to the Republic of Cameroon. This should be clear in the minds of each and every Southern Cameroonian. Don't get confused. You have to be vigilant. When you watch these things, you have to be vigilant. When you listen to people talk on the international scene, most of them are not also innocent of the things that they say because they know the implications of their words. So, when you're talking and dealing in the domain of international law, you have to be careful. And you will recall that each time they talk, they say it is important to examine the root causes. They say it is important to examine the root causes. The root causes. Okay. So, this is something we must know, my people. We must bear this in mind at all times. Bear this in mind at all times. So now let us move on to the next thing that La République du Cameroun has done. I'm sorry that I guess I'm having some little confusion there. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing that La République du Cameroun has done. Seems to be some little technical issues, but that those will not, interrupt this communication. So when they were confused, when they didn't know what else to do, La République du Cameroun decided, I guess I understand where this she was coming from now, so I think we'll be okay. Good. So La République du Cameroun decided, therefore, that it was important to come out with documents like this one. Look at this. This is an old paper again, but now they exhume it and they throw it in the forums. Le RDP n'exclut plus un dialogue sur le fédéralisme. What is the purpose of this? They want to test the waters. They tell themselves, now that they are obliged, now that they are confused, now that they are seeing the prospect that they will end up on the negotiation table, what can they start doing? What should we start saying? They go back to statements that were made just to please people at the time, and they bring them back and start circulating in our forums. Their agents in our forums do this circulation to give us the impression this is something that Professor Famendongo said just now, and then they test the waters to see how are the people reacting to it. Well, are they also getting tired that at the mention of federalism, some of them could start moving? My people, these things, they make me laugh. They make me laugh. Because this is what you call desperation. This is what you call total desperation. And because of desperation, we are going to see a lot more of this. We are going to see a lot of these things coming. And when they send, we start circulating very fast. We don't take time to investigate. We don't take time to ask questions. We don't take time to know, is this something that just came out recently? They are confused. First, they're in denial. Those measures don't concern them. They concern those that they call separatists. Next, it dawns on them. But these people who call separatists are all now, but where are they, even most of them? They may not really be involved. So what message do we take out next? Okay, they go and exhume the extract of Honorable Tibor Nagy saying Amabazonia doesn't seem realistic. The policies want to recognize the integrity of Cameroon. When they bring down and say, but wait a minute, that doesn't tie in very well, then they now bring this issue on federalism to try and occupy, also get busy talking about this kind of things. I've spoken to people in their system. They are all confused. They are dumbfounded. They are confused. Not only have they lost total control of the terrain, not only have they struggled by all means possible to woo the civil society on their side and failed because we continue to respect our ghost towns by day and by night, my people, they are lost. And so, for those of you who are getting carried away by some of these conversations of federalism, confederation, and all whatnot, I'd like you to watch this. When you look at this, this is an old newspaper in 1993, August 23 to 29, 1993. Look at the caption. Mitterrand instructs Biya to reject two-state federation. Suggests army intervention to crush Anglophone resistance. That's France. That's France. So what do you think has suddenly happened that France today will feel like, okay, we can let the people of Cameroon go back to a two-state federation or go into a confederation? Let me outline to you why France will never, ever accept any form of federation or confederation with Southern Cameroons. Rather than accept that, they better push and continue with the massive destruction that we are seeing today in our land. Like what is happening in Kumbo, with the massive extortion from the people and all whatnot. They better continue with that. And the reason is simple. Because this is what they did in Guinea, Conakry, with late President Sékou Touré. My people, France can never favor a federal or confederate system because, number one, France itself is not a federated system. No. France is a republic, as a republic. Federalism doesn't exist there. No, they don't believe in it. So they believe in all the power is at the center. And that is the mentality that is in all of Francophone Africa. Which country in Francophone Africa is practicing federalism? Not one. So that's number one. Number two, why France will not accept federalism in Cameroon? The reason is simple. Because France wants to have direct and unfettered access to the resources. I mean, direct, unfettered access to the resources. That is why they caused President Ahidjo to abolish federalism in the first place. Because President Ahidjo even seemed to enjoy the federal system. He had two prime ministers under him, the prime minister of the then West Cameroon and the prime minister of the then East Cameroon. And then he was a super president. Ahidjo used to enjoy it. And he even bragged about it until the French told him, stop, put an end to that nonsense, stop that experience. When oil was discovered in the Southern Cameroons, they didn't want to see themselves negotiating with the Fonchas or the Munas or whosoever, or having to have any discussion with the people of the Southern Cameroons in order to have access to our resources. They needed direct, unfettered access because dealing with their leaders that they pick and put in each of those Francophone countries, they don't have any agreements to come to. They simply instruct, we want this, and this is how it will go. They dictate all the terms and it goes. But now they imagine themselves having to deal with Anglo-Saxon Southern Cameroonians who will be asking questions. We know our rights. We have to have this. We have to have that. We need to have right of this. We need to have this quota and all of France doesn't want that. They don't want that. And so that hasn't changed. Even until today, it hasn't changed. So don't dream, don't daydream about something called federalism or something called confederacy. It can't work. If you see La République du Cameroun accept it, it's because they have their back to the wall. If they accept any of this, it's because they have their back to the wall and they are just biding their time, having an opportunity to see how to crack the momentum eventually, and they will go right back to where we are today. That's what they did in 1961. They knew they would get to where we are today. They knew from the start. So my people, don't be fooled. Listen, France, that is so worried and everything about the situation in the Southern Cameroons that they need to hold us at all costs under La République du Cameroun, favors independence for Quebec in Canada. Quebec is the only French province in Canada. And France has been pushing and pushing so hard to get independence for Quebec. That is why there have been two referendums. In 1980, when the PQ government came in Quebec, they negotiated hard and had a referendum to seek a mandate to negotiate sovereignty association with the government of Canada. But unfortunately, they were defeated massively at the polls. Just 15 years after, in 1995, there was yet another referendum to determine whether Quebec should be independent or not. In 1995, just 15 years after, 54.2% of the population said no to independence. Now, when it comes to the situation in Southern Cameroons, France even thinks that to talk about referendum is a taboo. We need to be crushed, like you heard from President Mitterrand. We need to be crushed. And then they will tell you we are too small to become a state and all in terms of population and everything. Let me refresh your mind. The population of Canada In 2019, according to 2019 estimates, that's just 2 years ago, was 8.4 million people. What's the population of Southern Cameroon? 8 million people, and even plus, because the government of Cameroon has been playing politics with census figures. So what is so different between us, my people of the Southern Cameroons? I say this and I repeat. Let us not fall in any trap to imagine that any kind of arrangement with La République du Cameroon can yield any good results. No. This is the time, more than ever before, and it is today or never, that we must go all the way to secure that which belongs to us, independence for Southern Cameroons. We get that independence or we resist forever. I've always said this, that by all peaceful means possible, we will get there. Our ghost towns have crippled them, crippled the economy, crippled everything, brought them down to their knees. You look at their corruption, like I said, my earliest videos at the start of this phase of the struggle. That embezzlement, massive embezzlement by the Ministry of Defense was going to help bring down the system to the point where they will no longer be able to stand us. My people, we are there. We are gradually there. All we need now is resilience. All we need now is to continue to be strong. All we need now is to be vigilant. Don't share things without verifying. And don't get carried away by some of those lousy things they just throw at you, trying to break your morale. Because the morale of the people of La République du Cameroon today, regarding the situation in the Southern Cameroons, is at an all-time low. That's why they are confused and they've gotten into this kind of uncoordinated communication. They are lost. They are confused. So let us remain vigilant. Let us remain strong. Let us remain focused. We must maintain our eyes on the big prize, which is Boya. I like to end this communication here. But even as I'm ending, I want to doff my heart to all the members of the civil society in the Southern Cameroons, to all the business people, to all the Bayam Selams, to all the Okada riders, to all the taxi drivers, all transporters, to everyone that is contributing in one way or the other to make sure we keep our Monday holy, to make sure we keep our country Sunday holy. Ghost towns all the way unto independence. To God and to God alone be all the glory. Our victory is certain.